All right, good morning, people. Bob is back once again here this morning. We're ready to break down some Bitcoin. Let's get right down to it. Really, things changed here a couple of directions already this morning. Kind of pushed down here. I think it was about 19,150-ish, maybe 45 minutes ago. Got a real nice pop off of that level. And I was telling Matt already this morning, I'm like, man, that's the first time we've seen, at least recently, where, something of a small rising wedge near the top of, well, I guess this one wasn't near the top of a move. That might be the biggest difference. But the small rising wedge didn't break down below the measured move level, which I figured was probably a fairly reasonable sign that we would get a nice pop here this morning, and we have so far. I think it still plays out over the course of the next few hours. I don't think it's quite ready yet. I'm guessing Bitcoin probably comes back down, maybe 19,400, somewhere in that region one more time, but it may not. But I got a pretty decent idea, at least at this point. As good of an idea as you could possibly have when it's a market that obviously has a mind of its own, and other players in the game that don't necessarily have the same thought process I do. But when we get it on the shorter term time frames, we'll take a look at what I think we've got going on, and then again we'll just keep talking about this weekly chart. We've got the bullish divergence, at least on the RSI, but we've got a few things that are in fact going against us. It's all coming down to it this weekend, right? We're going to find out real soon what's actually going on here. We've got this trend line right here, this longer term trend line that's been holding us down for basically since December of 2020, really. I mean, that trend line has been intact since then. So it's been almost 2 years that trend line has failed to be broken. Is it time? We're going to find out real damn soon. It's just tough to say at the moment, really. I mean, it's still just not tipping its hand. It feels like it could go either way. I think that's Bitcoin every day anyway. But it just feels like it could go either way. We're holding right now. We're holding the level that we needed to hold, right? We wanted to at least clear this level by the end of the week. Let's see if we can, in fact, hold that longer. Now, again, we always talk about it, the Thursday through Saturday, Thursday through Sunday trading. If we get that, I've got some targets here that I think should work out fairly well. I don't expect things to get insane. I think we're going to get a decent push. At least that's my expectation and hope. But I don't think that things start cranking just yet. And I don't know, there are a couple different reasons for that, but the short version is simply that I think that it would be fairly unreasonable for me to believe that it's just going to go absolute, lift off style and go straight to, like 25,000 this weekend. I don't think that happens, but I think potentially over the course of the next few weeks that could happen. I don't know if we've put enough time in down here on this trend line. And you probably hear me saying that, and you're thinking, well, man, it's been bounced off that trend line for 3 months. Yeah, but, it's really, you only have this one touch, two touch. I can see it coming up here, rolling back down one more time. Maybe not even coming all the way down here, but essentially maybe double bottoming right here on a weekly basis. Just for the simple fact that, the reality of the situation is that we still are going to have some level of resistance. Even if Bitcoin comes up here and taps to 21 simple, and let's say it's like right where it is at the end of this week, I mean, that's all the way up there at 23,000. I mean, what are the chances that Bitcoin's going to tack on, $3,500 between now and the end of the weekend? Probably not that strong. It could have happened, sure, of course it could. But I mean, we're talking at this point, we've only got 2 days and 10 hours to accomplish that task. I do think that some realistic targets would be somewhere up in here, up in this range. If it gets higher than that, I mean, it will catch me off guard, to be completely frank. But again, it's not. I don't think it's a given one way or the other how this will play out. But that's something I could see, happening. Now we are getting some solid price action here, right? Even right now, I mean, it was, we're only talking 30, $40, but that's a level that I'm very closely keeping an eye on. So this is definitely of interest here right now. And as we zoom in on the shorter term time frames, I'll talk to you a little bit about that level and why I'm so interested. And like I said, I don't think necessarily that even as we're talking here, I don't think it's quite ready to break the level that I'm looking for right now. But feasibly speaking, it could. And if it could be one of those things where I'm looking at this thing potentially as a breakout here shortly. And we're right at that level. So, I mean, it's not necessarily the weekly. Again, we'll get zoomed in on the shorter term time frames. But, again, at the end of the day, here's what we've got. Other than the fact that the 21 simple moving average on this daily chart has been holding us down, we're in an uptrend. Not a long one, but we're in an uptrend. A weekly, or not a weekly, but a daily uptrend that has carried on now for about a week. You had a few wicks below, but otherwise this trend line right here is our trend line. And then here, finally, at least as of right this moment, Bitcoin has managed to hold this trend line that was broken. And again, we've got all this volume in here to suggest that probably it did break it. And that we had a ton of people. Now, granted, again, keep in mind there are buyers and sellers on each side of this, but the fact that this happened, followed by 2 days of high volume, that actually did push up a little bit, could be a good sign. And right now, again, this daily candle is at a point where it's potentially ready to rock. I mean, you got this right here, 19,550-ish, 19,570. That's why this thing is fluctuating pretty significantly between those levels. Don't be surprised, though, if once this thing clears this level, let's say it's maybe on an hourly basis or maybe it's 15 minutes or whatever. In the event that Bitcoin gets to that level, holds it, just wait for this thing to lift off. There would be every reason in the world to believe that we would at least come back up to here and then potentially up to here. And I've got some measured moves that will help to confirm that here once we zoom into the shorter term time frames. But things look like they're ready to lift off here. Without knowing any better, it sure feels like it. And I'm sure there's just many people still saying, "Oh man, this thing's coming way down." But Matt and I were talking this morning again. This is the first time that a trend line is held up, like something that's a fairly significant trend line. It's the first time it's held up recently. So now look, again, I was sitting here saying just a few minutes ago that I don't know that this thing's necessarily ready to rock just yet. And again, if you look at this particular, chart, this daily chart right here, it's fair to believe that we might get a pop here. And who knows, might even carry all the way up to here. The question becomes, though, from an RSI standpoint, do we actually eclipse like this level right here? Because each time we've tried recently, it's been absolute destruction shortly thereafter, right? Like here we broke up above this level, very briefly lived, boom, right back down the other side. Here, broke above that level, boom, right back down the other side. And again, we've got this trend line here, which I think for all intents and purposes, that one will probably be broken this weekend, which I think is what would lead to some decent upside here, right? Alternatively, again, there's the chance that it just gets absolutely peppered right here and then rolls on down, maybe back into here, who knows. But either way, as usual, we're right on the edge, right? All right, so all that being stated, let's get in on the shorter term time frames. We've got an idea. But yeah, I mean, I think, again, realistically, I think this is a number that would be a logical number for this weekend. If this happens, I would be fairly surprised if we get up into these ranges. But just based on the idea that the pattern that we've been looking at for a while now could play out, just based on the idea that it could. You'd say that at least for now, the upside would be capped by this particular trend line. So best case scenario, initially, you're probably going to push up to here. Is that happening in the next 3 days? No. Seems highly unlikely. You'd need to string together multiple days like this one to reach there. Let's just say it did start here and we got up to about 23K. And we're talking 18%. Feasible. Just, again, fairly unlikely as well. Unless, I guess the other thing would be, let's say we go into this weekend and it's green when we close. Chances are pretty good it will just continue to the upside coming out of that weekend. At which point, maybe if we string together this many green days, then we could reach an 18%. And yeah, there you go. I mean, if we could string together like 5 to 7 green days, then yeah, sure, maybe something in the 20% range is realistic. But to assume it would happen this weekend, I would be a fool to sit here and try and convince you that would be the case. So, as far as this goes, though, again, you're watching it fluctuate here. This one's not hiking ashy candles, so it's valid for the time period. Definitely getting some fluctuation. 19.5 seems to be a number that may, at least potentially hold up here for the time being. And again, we're just looking for a push off of those levels. And here you're going to see it on all of the charts now. I think I've got a pretty good handle on where this thing is going at this point, at least as well as you can, right? Like I said earlier, I mean, you just never know for sure. But, here you can see right here, and let's just go ahead and show it right here. 4-hour chart, we got the 200 simple coming right in here. We've got the 100 or the 21 simple. Guess what? The price right now, it's holding that 21 simple. It may not look like it necessarily here, but it is holding it. This is similar to what we were dealing with yesterday, right? Bitcoin came down into here, and I said, man, Bitcoin's got to reverse course real fast, or this thing's going to fall through. We're going to go into the abyss again. Same concept here. Now, this 4-hour candle's not done. It's got an hour and a half left to go. But, again, we're already up above 19.5, which means that it did reverse off that level fairly quickly. Now, again, does that mean that this thing's ready to just go liftoff mode? Probably not. But, I mean, if you consider that each one of these little ticks is 4 hours, I mean, and if the number we want to break above is right here on the RSI, we're not that far from it. Now you got the issue where you've got basically like an ugly doubling top here, where this has just been getting, crapped on for hours at this level. But difference being is that right this moment, Bitcoin's above it. So that's a huge difference there. Now, the fact that the 200 simple moving averages right here tells me a few different things that could be of interest as well. That if we can find support of the 21, before you know it, I mean, Bitcoin, the simple fact of the matter is Bitcoin might be done down here at all for several days, if nothing else. And then if things get real crazy, obviously, much further than that. But, I mean, this level right here, we catch the 21, you get some support. All of a sudden, you're coming probably up to this range, potentially up to this range like we talked about, and then you're flipping potentially this into, maybe you do come back and back test it. If you flip this into support officially, we might not see anything sub 19.5 for quite a while at that point. No, not a given. Obviously, I've said this every time I've ever done a video. Nothing's ever a given, but there are some different things at play here that would suggest that could work out that way. Now, this trend line right here needs to hold up for any of this to work out, and I'll talk about this trend line here in a second. I think we've got something, and maybe it's not right here per se, but you could maybe treat this trend line and then this one as kind of a secondary trend line, even though it's been held up for a longer period of time. I'm looking at it kind of separate, but you've got a lot of support and resistance that is now actually coming into play, that's actually holding up, at least for now. You got trend lines that are holding up, so there's some good feasibility here of some continuation, I would say. Again, you got to be worried that we're right here at the 200 simple on the 4-hour chart, because again, recently we haven't done a whole lot of good with it. But what better time? I mean, look at all this volume. Look at all this volume. People are buying and selling Bitcoin in droves. I imagine you've got half the market or better saying, "Oh man, this thing is going to roll." I mean, look at it; it hasn't been able to break a high in weeks, right? It's been I don't know, 2-3 weeks basically since we've set a higher high anywhere. Well, is this going to be the opportunity? We're going to find out real soon. But again, I mean, this thing could maybe we do get something that just fires up off of here this weekend and into the early next week. Come back down here, retest something down in this range, and then just go. So, man, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting. Get in on the hourly chart here again. I'm just gonna show you a few things as far as levels that are holding up. This trend line I added the other day, kind of just keep in mind that, hey, we had this peak over here. We got crapped out on it. And then we had this trend line here. Midpoint, like this thing held up perfectly. I mean, we only came down here one time to this bottom end of the range. And then otherwise the midpoint held up, which worked out great because now we've got this nice little uptrend in here. And when I get in on my one chart here, you're going to see it pretty clearly. But even on this hourly chart, you can see this trend line right here holding up very well, actually. And then right here, you had this trend line. This was the break of this level, bounce, back test, go. And then really, I mean, what I'm seeing here is at least a potential for a ascending triangle, and it looks like it's beginning to get moving here a little bit. It may still get. I think there's still some feasibility that this level right here might be problematic. Maybe come up here one more time, get smacked down. Maybe I don't know. The way Bitcoin's moving this morning, it's tough to count against the bus driver at the moment. But I'm not going to be surprised if this thing does just go ahead and erupt straight up the charts here. And again, start pushing, certainly this level would get taken out at that point. And then, we're talking, again, probably up to this particular range here, based on a couple of different things. And let's go ahead and talk about that at this point. Let's get in on my shortest term time frames. I got this kind of color coded here at this point, just to say, to kind of point out exactly what it is I'm talking about, so you don't have to sit here and guess. We've got what looks to be an ascending triangle, and it's funny. It's been so long since the market's been bullish that you forget about some of these things sometimes. But back during the real big run, in the 2020, more or less. What would happen a lot of times is you would get these moves way up the chart, coming out of nice patterns like this too, especially. You'd get like moves out of like a rounded bottom or something. You'd get this big move, and then you would get this nasty pullback that looked like it was just going to fall into the abyss. And then it would do exactly what you see here. It would recover, and then it would start into an ascending triangle. And it didn't necessarily, like, this is a fairly long-term time frame here, as far as, well, not really. I mean, we're talking, this is still only days. I mean, this chart only covers about 10 days. But the thing is, I mean, let's see. Let's go ahead and measure this out for you here. You break above that level right there, and boom, all of a sudden you are right here to this white line that I've had on here. And that's going to put you basically 20,500. So, fairly, I'd say probably count on it. I mean, if you see a strong break above this level, 19.6-ish, and then you see, maybe it comes up to 19.8 real quick, retests. You see that happen, and you can pretty well assure that this thing's working its way up to about 20,500. 20,003, 20,500. It's going to be somewhere in there. Now, I guess as far as the 15-minute chart goes, this is kind of what I was looking at here. This trend line, the price action is running into it. Do I think it maybe kind of pulls back one more time and retest this level? I kind of hope so, because I was really expecting this thing to roll down off of this trend line and give me one more chance to put a little more in the bag there that I didn't get to grab. So now I'm basically just looking for this thing to crack this level, have sufficient volume to justify a breakout, and then go ahead and add to the bag there, with the idea that, again, we're probably shooting for 20,003 to 20,500. And then again, just to reiterate, let's say that the market is about to flip bullish on us, and truly bullish. I'm not talking like, a couple of days of bullish momentum or something. I'm talking like, that we're about to flip the switch and go bullish for, several months maybe. If that is going to happen, then obviously the concept here is that you get your rise, your pullback, ascending triangle. Typically, coming out of that pattern, things are going to get exciting. So don't be surprised if, in fact, over the course of however much time it takes to do this, that we do, in fact, start to make our way up into these ranges and do something similar on the way up. So be on the lookout here. Again, at this point, I don't expect that, at least today, as long as, nothing, knock on wood, nothing crazy happens, I don't anticipate that we're going to fall below this level again today, unless it, maybe just kind of taps right down here. But otherwise, I figure this thing is either going to go cracking through here real soon, or it's going to roll back down here, give us one more chance to buy a few more bucks worth that's not at this level. Otherwise, man, just look out. This thing, we're ready to rock here, and you can see that, again, it's feasible. So let's go get some bangers out here to get some some big winners. I mean, that's what we're talking about. So man, enjoy the weekend. Let's hope for exactly what we just talked about here, and looking forward to catching up with everybody next week.